Good morning, everybody. Welcome to OptionPit.com. I'm Andrew Giovinazzi, Chief Operating Officer of OptionPit.com. Remember, our videos and our content are for educational purposes only. Consult your financial advisors before you trade options. Anything you trade is your responsibility alone. So remember, think about that. All right. Our Trader Summit, June 28th to the 30th. Also, my birthday is the 29th, so we'll probably have some sort of steak celebration in Chicago, which is always a good time. Also, we have a lot of good speakers discussing trading strategy, volatility, mergers and acquisitions, really understanding kind of the nuts and bolts of how options are priced, which I find that handy, actually, after doing this for 20 years or so. All right, let's see what's happening today. So really, I'm not going to say obviously, but this is a big news event. In the past, I can remember, a couple of Gulf Wars and attacks. Things have happened. This is probably the least phased I have ever seen the equity markets after something, of this action on the world stage. The closest I can think about it was probably in the 90s, and I'm sure people with longer memories, but, when we used to have to airstrike, what's his name? Saddam Hussein, when he kept crossing his parallels he wasn't supposed to cross. I'm a believer that history repeats itself, so I'm going to guess we will probably be doing something of the same relatively soon. Okay, total speculation on my part. What I would say is, if you want to look for parallels, you want to see how the market might be pricing that type of activity. So this is basically, this is how we do it. Number one is VIX is definitely higher. Okay, VIX is definitely higher. Also today, what you're finding is the VIX futures are actually moving with the cash today a little bit. Although we have an 84-cent move, it's not unusual for the VIX futures to move at some sort of discount to the cash. But you are seeing things move to, I'll just say, let me get the everything, May, June, April. Good. Everything is in line. You're starting to see things move to actually to the delta pretty well. You're getting, a little move in September. You're getting a little move in August. You're getting small moves all across the curve. On the front part of the curve is moving the most as we wait for the next shoe to drop. There's still a fair amount of, we were just looking at this VIX future yesterday at 1325 in April, and we were all wondering, what the heck is it for? I think the market was just not quite sure. We were expecting it to start to drift lower. We saw VIX actually trade in the 10 handle this week. What was it? Today's Friday, so was it Thursday or Wednesday? It's hard. It was probably Wednesday when we had that really nice ADP report, the non-farm report. I think not as good. There wasn't enough continuation, I think, to keep the rally going. So we had looked at time spreads and some things like that. We passed in favor of the non-farm payroll being volatile. The airstrike was certainly a surprise. Maybe some people knew it was going to happen, but the VIX futures were not collapsing in a way that would make them, you would think, that basically they were still waiting. And I think even to this extent, we took premium out of the futures today, which generally means that the futures are absorbing some of the rise in cash. Okay, so the idea is what's happening. So for right now, the market is absorbing the move in cash. The futures aren't necessarily flying upward. So what happens is you have a sort of what I call, it's like a fatigue effect, where the futures sort of stay at this elevated area and the VIX cash moves up and down. Okay? So that's just a reminder, right? VIX cash moves up and down, and the futures are going to stay relatively muted. So they're moving, but they're really not, I would say, responding hard to the way the cash is moving. So until you start seeing the futures actually really start to pick up, that's when the market is going to change their opinion on future volatility. We just haven't seen it yet. Okay? We've got futures moving, but not enough really to signal a massive change. So we've got short-term movement in VIX, which is normal because something strange has just happened, but the market hasn't reset yet. Right? It's not expecting a lot higher volatility yet. Right? As far as individual equity goes, who knows? I think most of things are going to be locked up until earnings. It looks like almost every stock, if you're just looking, is pretty much down across the board. Not much of a surprise. We didn't get a great non-farm payroll report, so not a good report. There won't be anything happening out of the Fed anymore, so bad news is bad news, and there's more uncertainty. So now, again, we need a reason to rally. That's as simple as that. We do have higher volatility. We can look at supplies. We can look at some iron condors and things like that. But I think that's what we have. We're going to have a little weakness and still some of those until we get either more information out of somewhere, out of whatever happens geopolitically, or we get better earnings. Other than that, I think we're going to slide around quite a bit. And with that, that is our vol report for today. I'll see most of you, or a lot of you, in our chat room later.